What's going on, everyone? 3, 2, 1. What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the post-game recap sponsored by the Ranch Harley-Davidson in College Station. I'm Alex Miller from the Eagle, joined by Travis Brown and Robert Cessna. We're inside Kyle Field following Texas A&M's 20-3 win over UMass. The Aggies snapping a 6-game losing streak, a 50-year skid. Cease. It was pretty ugly, but A&M needed a win in just about the worst way possible.
Yeah, it was ugly. The game reminded me a lot of Auburn last week. It's just that A&M won. To me, it was just as ugly, if not uglier. And, there's not much more can say about this team or this year. They got the win. Okay. I mean, that's what else could you say? I mean, it missed key personnel again, even more. They show flashes. Then you throw in the weather. I mean, it is what it is. They won the game. The losing streak's over.
I will say, I give it to Olin Buchanan for kind of the way he asked a question in postgame, because he asked about fans who might consider this win, actually worse than some of the losses that they have had this year, because it was UMass who, if you look at some of the athletic and some of the all FBS team polls, UMass comes in dead last. I mean, a lot of people consider them the worst team in the FBS, and the commentators on the SEC Network Plus broadcast were talking about how amazing it was that UMass was able to kind of bully A&M on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, especially through the first half, which is not a good sign. It's a win, but it's not necessarily a win that shows that anybody's improved. They've taken it really any steps forward. It's just a win, and I don't know if anybody can feel great about the win.
Yeah, I mean, hardly anybody was here to actually see it, especially in the second half. I mean, A&M was up 10-3 at halftime, and it was like, as soon as the band got done playing, I mean, there was a pretty steady exodus from the stadium. I mean, we were kind of watching, and Travis, I know you were watching the shirtless dudes in the upper deck of the south end zone just trying their little relay race they were running. I mean, it was pretty.
Let me pose a question.
Yeah.
Cease, you've been covering this for a really long time. Can you remember? I know that the weather is a big factor. It is really gross. It's cold. It's rainy. But can you remember a game that felt like that? I mean, we were talking about. It feels like a spring game.
Yeah, it was hard to say how bad the crowd was. It was so bad because it's so big. There's so many areas back there. How many thousands could be in there, literally? But you looked like you were at a high school game of a 2A level, like at Somerville. And I would even say that because those stands were full last time I was there. Anytime you're in a stadium that this is this big and that empty, there just was no people here. Getting back to is, and I'm chuckling. It was a ho-hum victory, but it would have been dump on everybody if they lost. I mean, they had to win the game. As ugly as it was or what have you, they were somewhat in a no-win situation. And that's why the fans didn't show up or left. I mean, we all knew they were going to win. It looked at the end like if they'd have played forever, UMass couldn't have scored unless A&M gave them the ball.
Well, and that kind of reflects on how crazy of a season this is, again, because we don't want to beat the dead horse of Jimbo Fisher's contract anymore. But when this happens in the stands, that's usually the sign that you've hit rock bottom. That's usually when you start hearing the rumblings of people making a move. There isn't going to be a move because of Jimbo Fisher's contract, but that's case in point of exactly what these side effects, the symptoms are of things starting to happen on typical seasons.
Yeah, but here I'll say it last week, and I will stand by. There's very few things I'll stand by, but I'll stand by. Season was over last week. These games we're playing mean absolutely nothing other than, quote, the pride and the kids playing and the youngsters, because the fans don't care. The media, we care because you want to wake up Sunday, you want to read something. So it's tough for us to find things to say and read, because it's probably not going to be positive because they're not playing well enough. They don't have enough good players. They don't have who knows. But yet there's 2 games left. Now there's only 1 game left.
Let me pose this question to y'all too, because it was kind of one of my 3 takes, and I will admit it got a little bit beaten down at the end of the game. Devon Achane's out today. Second game he missed with that hurt foot. They had Le'Veon Bell and Amari Daniels coming in for him. Those 2 against UMass, 102nd rushing defense in the nation. Again, UMass did not really impress. And it wasn't until the very end of the game that Le'Veon Bell was able to kind of spring out and do that. What does this kind of say to y'all about where the running back room is moving forward if Devon Achane were to go pro next year?
LaVayan Moss, because LaVayan and Bell, I mean, it was Moss, right?
Moss. Right. Yeah.
But here,
Le'Veon Bell is
yeah,
not
you went Cease. You went Cease.
Yeah.
Here's the deal is, yeah, they should have rushed for more. Wasn't impressed with the running game, but I will give a little bit to the field conditions, because here's the deal: when they break through, whether it be Moss or whether it be Daniels, I think in a dry field they take a couple to the house, because I felt like A&M was going to have a lot of advantage on speed, even second or third string. But once again, they can't run the football. They didn't run the football against anybody, and it wasn't, I don't know what word, it wasn't surprising they couldn't even run the ball against UMass, because then they couldn't throw. They couldn't take advantage, because UMass made adjustments and A&M no weapons in the receiving game. I mean, once you take, Max Wright wasn't here, and, they still, Stewart was out, and all these things. It was the Auburn game all over a little bit. There's nobody, once they took away Muhammad, that they figured A&M couldn't even move the ball through the ground, the fast, so they can't move the ball through the ground. We're just watching like a junior high team play. I mean, it's just like, okay, you go here, you go there. It's just, and you're right, they got a lot to do. And I mean, a lot everywhere to do, because they're not that good. And injuries and suspensions has a lot to it. But before they started this when they started this spiral, they had the quarterback they wanted, they had the players they want, and they lost to Appalachian State. They have no one to blame but themselves. And yeah, it's easy to dump on them. It's just been that kind of year, and the fact that it's raining, nobody was here. It is what it is.
You got to consider this too. Until last week, Daniels and Moss really hadn't played a lot, because A-Chain had carried the load he probably, I don't have the math on me, but I'd be willing to bet he had at least 80% of the carries throughout the season. Easily. And so the fact that there really just has been no rotation at running back, one, probably indicative of where the Aggies are at running back, kind of showed today until the very end. And, when you don't play, I mean, you don't have the experience to go out there and do it, and have the vision to find those holes and understand the plays.
When the game mattered at the early, A&M had 11 carries for -3 yards. Now, 2 of them were sacks, but they couldn't even move UMass. And they had, quote, their 5 best offensive linemen for the last 3 or 4 weeks. They had Dewberry in there, or Dewberry. I'm getting his bad, or Bell, even Bell. But it is what it is. They're not that good. They can't move them. And at the end, they scored a consolation touchdown because UMass had given up at that point. They said, we're getting our $1 million check and we're getting out of here. And so it really was a 13-3 game. If UMass decided to punt at the end, it'd have been a 13-3 game. And it is what it is. It's a W. Move on. Let's get LSU done, and let's move on to basketball.
Well, anything else, guys?
Take it to the house.
Take it to the house. That's going to do it for us here from Kyle Field. Be sure to check theeagle.com for all of our coverage from A&M's 20-3 win over the Massachusetts Minutemen. For Travis Brown and Robert Cessna, I'm Alex Miller. We'll see you one more time next weekend.